with Half Dozen Customs. We are out here. I don't know how well of a video you guys are going to be able to see, but we are going to cut. I need this glove box door out of here. So can't see nothing, partially because it's dark, but it's about time for some glasses. One glove box door. Alright, well, I'm happy that that's off. Been talking all summer about getting that door off there, and like I said, I tried once before, and yeah, as far as getting it to unscrew, was not happening. Those flatheads, and they're all rusty, and so cut it off. It is, and here. So now this will. Work right here, and we're just gonna, like I said, this is, you know, we're probably gonna end up having to trim some of this off on the bottom, but this is just gonna go there as a cover. What we're gonna do is there's these 4 holes in here that from factory, there was little rubber doohickeys there that kept the door from rattling around. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna use those holes, and we're gonna weld some screws where those holes are, and then this will just bolt on. We might have to move this hole. This hole might have to get welded up and moved over because see it's sticking out there. It's not in the right spot, but that's gonna be it, and then it'll just bolt on. And like I've said before, the reason that it's bolting on is because the brake thing mounts right here, and the steering column mounts to the bottom of the brake thing, and for this to open, all that's in the way. So now we'll have to talk to my buddy and see if he actually wants to keep. I don't think he'll want to keep that because it's for the 4-wheel drive. And this truck is not 4-wheel drive, and I don't think it's ever been 4-wheel drive. I could be wrong. I know that they did make 2-wheel drive versions of this, and I guess they're more rare than the 4-wheel drive versions. So they're kind of sought after. But anyways, that's it. That's it for that. We'll see you a little later for probably figuring out getting that door mounted onto the truck. So I'll see you guys later. We're back out here on the Jeep today, and I've been messing around a little bit off camera with it, and we got the glove box door mounted. So for right now, you can see the black mark burn there. And you can see the black mark burn there. So what I did was that there's these like 2 factory holes that are up at the top, and they got from the factory, they had like a little rubber piece that goes there. It's just like a little rubber nipple, so that way when the glove box door closes, it doesn't rattle. And so I was able to use the marks. There was like a wear mark from that piece of rubber on the back of the door, and I put a little screw right there and welded it to the back of the door, and it fit right in the holes that were on the dashboard. So that worked out perfect, and we got it nutted from the back. Now I was really hoping, so this hole was there, and I was like, well, that's not going to clear. So I went as close to the edge of the glove box thing, and I drilled a second hole, hoping that we'd be able to use that. And as you can see, I now have 2 holes to weld up. And then there's a hole like that's right here on the edge of this door, that I think I can mark from the back, and we can get a 3rd screw down there, to help bolt this door on. But the edge of the glove box opening is like right on the edge of this door, so we're not going to be able to get another screw over here. What I'm thinking maybe is that once we have this on and everything's good and we're happy with everything, maybe I'll drill a hole up through the bottom, and then we can nut and bolt it up through the bottom. I don't know any other way to do it. It's not like it's going to be super wobbly. And I do plan on putting a rubber gasket on the inside of this before like we finally bolt it down, just to prevent any rattling. Maybe the 2 screws up top is enough. Maybe we don't need anything else. So, but I mounted the steering wheel back up. And me and my buddy that owns the Jeep had talked about making some kind of cover there that covers this, because it's ugly. So I'm thinking, just a piece of sheet metal like this with the notch cut out of it. You can see that I have these edges curved to fit the bottom of the glove box door. And I'm just thinking that we'll just tack this to the glove box door, or weld it to the glove box door, and then that way it'll come on and off with the actual glove box door. And I was thinking about maybe doing a little bead roll around it so that it looked nice. But the problem that I've ran into just with making a cardboard template is this giant monstrosity of a plate that they have here. Now that's just something that somebody made. So what I'm thinking is I'm gonna take it off. I've already marked it. I'm gonna take it off, and we're gonna cut this side off completely to where it bolts in at, and we'll re-round off the edges and make it look nice. Now this side over here is a little bit trickier because of how far out it mounts out here. So we're gonna kind of have to go. So I'm gonna cut it right here where it mounts to here, and then we're gonna kind of just curve it out and around that bolt. And I think from from the driver's side, when you're looking at this, like, you know, from the driver's side, you're not going to see that monstrosity back there anymore. But if you come around to the passenger side and you look through, I think you're still going to see, you know, you're going to see part of that monstrosity there. You know, we'll get as much of it cut out as we can. But I think that you're gonna see it regardless. I really don't think that there's a whole lot that I can do to cover that up, unless I just, you know, I make this huge cover that covers the whole thing. But then I think it's gonna look weird. So, you know, do you have just a little bit of that thing hanging out, or do you make this plate that comes, you know, way out past the glove box door? You know, I don't want to go out past that glove box door. I don't even want to go to the edge of the glove box door. You know, but I think, you know, I think something like that, it, you know, will look good. And then, like I said, we'll put a couple of bead rolls in it. You know, well, not a couple. We'll just put, we'll put like one bead roll that comes up and kind of follows the you know, contour of what it is that we're gonna build there. And I think it'll look good. You know, I'm not a huge fan of welding it to the glove box door, but I think that that's the, you know, it's the best option for it. You know, the glove box door is never going to be used, so, you know, I think we're pretty good. It's actually latched in the top here, so it's actually latched in the middle and then bolted at the top. And the bottom would be the only thing that, you know, I would worry about maybe rattling. But if we put that rubber seal in there, it shouldn't, you know, it shouldn't rattle none. And like I said, worst case scenario, we can always just put a, you know, we could put a screw. I could just, you know, not that I want to, but I mean, we could put a self tapper right here in the middle up into the bottom of the dash. You'd never see it. But anyways, the glove box door is in, and now I'm messing with some kind of little cover for that guy, just to kind of cover that up. You know, we'll leave the bar coming out the bottom, and I'm not really too worried about that bar. You know, we could actually, because this would get painted the color of the truck, the blue, that we're gonna do. You know, the dashboard's gonna go blue, so the glove box door will go blue, this will go blue, and then we can paint this little ring blue, and then that way when you put it all together, it just looks like it's all one piece. And the, you know, the rest of the unit's black, and once the rest of the floor is black, hopefully it'll just kind of disappear in there. You know, that whole brake unit that's in there it's not from this truck. Like I said, it's from like an S10 Blazer or Ford Ranger. I think he said it was a Ford Ranger. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. It's lunchtime now, so I'm gonna go cook some lunch for me and Colleen. And when I come back out, we're gonna pull that piece off and cut and trim that piece down, try and make it look as nice as possible, and then we'll figure out how we're gonna make this cover. So I'll see you guys back here in a little bit. Thanks for jumping in on the update. Bye. Alright, so we're back out here on the Jeep. And I had Colleen come out and kind of look at what we were doing, and she had what I think is a good idea, and I think we're gonna go with it. So she said, you know, let's do something like this. And then that way he can put his gauges here, and we can put the key on the other side over here somewhere. And just kind of extend that dash down a little bit. It'll cover over the steering. You know, we may still end up having to do, you know, something like this on top of what we're doing, you know, something like that. But that's okay. I'm okay with that. But instead of, you know, we were kind of talking about, you know, doing a center console down here so that he had somewhere to put the keys and the ignition. And what I liked was he talked about, instead of doing, you know, a detail here, putting a speaker there, which I really like that idea. But, you know, as much as he likes the idea of that, he wasn't like really sold on it. He's like, I don't know that I really want something there. So, you know, we had talked about making it removable, and then that way if he absolutely didn't like it, he could remove it. But then, you know, if he was to remove it, then we lose somewhere to put the key, and we lose somewhere to put the gauges and everything. So if we just, you know, we got to cover that steering wheel thing there, and, you know, we need somewhere to put gauges, and we need somewhere to put a key. So, you know, I'm thinking something like that, and then, you know, we'll have it just kind of blend off into nothing under the radio. And the reason that I'm doing this is because we've had different templates down here, and I don't like that from the passenger side you could see it end. So that's why I've extended it out, so that it kind of blends off into nothing, and you don't, you know, you don't see this just flat wall sticking down here. So I'm thinking that's, you know, I think we're gonna attempt to make something like that. I did go over and look through the scraps that I have, and I have this piece of metal here that I think will be perfect to make it out of. And you know, there's a little bit of a curve here in the dash, so we'll put the curve in this piece, and we'll make it, you know, we'll make it curve in and come out and around. So I think, you know, the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this glove box door back off, and I think that we're gonna take this glove box door back off. We're gonna take this stuff off. I am gonna trim this up like I said that I was going to, and then we'll make it fit the bottom of the dashboard, and then we'll worry about making the rest of it fit. So let's just get it so that it fits the dashboard first, and then we'll go from there. So like I said, I'm gonna take that apart and start getting it ready to make this piece. So I'm usually pretty good at making stuff like this, and I usually just make it on the fly and wing it, and I'm just hoping that we can nail it the first time and not waste metal, because I have metal left, but I don't have a lot of it, and I've talked about it in previous videos that we lost our metal guys. So you can see I just welded a couple screws here. And it latches in the center, which just kind of made that a pain in the butt to take off. Alright, so we're gonna cut and trim this thing up and make this thing as small as we possibly can. So let's work on that first. Alright, well, it's better. A little cleaner, a little nicer looking. So that fits a lot better. Looks like we can maybe take a little more off of that. All right, let's I guess let's transfer this guy over to metal and just wing it, right? That's how I normally do things, just wing it. And we'll make it work in the end. All right, let's I needed to bend this first. All right, let's see. It's the second time in the past week I have ran into those being an issue. Time for them to go. Huh. Well, it unscrewed and backed out, but it does not look like this thing is threaded. Maybe it's got some ridges on it. So those are supposed to be, they're supposed to be these little feet that go down and hold the metal in place. And when I was putting this thing together, I was like, dude, those will just be in my way, so I never put them on. So Colleen just came and got me, there's a picture posted on Facebook a couple towns over. There's this giant meteor that I guess comes by our Earth every 80,000 years. And you're supposed to be able to see it for like the next month or something, or the next couple weeks. So we went outside to go see if we could see it, and we could see it. It's a full moon out, and the moon is so bright, it made it, I think, more difficult to see. But we got to see it. Pretty cool. It looked like just a star in the sky with a huge tail off at the end of it. So, just looking at this, so I was really hoping that this was going to fade off into nothing, but it obviously doesn't. So we may end up having to make some kind of rounded cap for this guy. Alright, so we're not going to be able to put that in until we cut out to fit around the steering wheel. Alright, so right now we're running into this on the edge of the, what do you want to call it, the door jamb area, I guess, and it's pushing this way. This hole's big enough to fit around the steering column, so we're good there. But remember, I wanted to curve this guy out so that it matches the bottom of the dashboard. So I think we're gonna try and curve him out by using the stretcher. and that should move this over a little bit and hopefully center us up here. If not, we may have to trim a little off of here, but we'll find out. Alright, let's see. So you can see we curved it. So I got it stuck. So since we curved this out, now this corner's sticking way out. We got to bring this corner back in. I don't know how much that helped. We may probably gonna have to take it out and do it. Okay, this one, this is going to be a sharp bend, so hopefully all right, I don't think that that's gonna work. I mean, it's working, but you see we tore this down here. And then not only that, but it's pulling, trying to stretch it, it's pulling this here. So we're gonna have to go through and we're gonna have to try and hammer this roll back out, and then what we're gonna end up doing is we're gonna make a bunch of pie cuts, and then we'll bend it where we need it. You know, and we'll have to just go back and weld those pie cuts up or something. You know, we'll figure it out. Okay, so now this one's shrinking, and we're probably going to have to do the exact same thing, which is we're going to have to shrink some, and then we'll probably have to cut some. All right. It took a little bit of work. But we got it in. I dig it. I think it looks kick-ass. It solved our problem. Like I said, we'll have to make a little corner for that guy. Cool. I'm super happy with that. Well, hope you guys enjoyed the video of me making that. Like I said, usually when I wing it, it comes together. I don't know how any else to do it. I mean, that's just a one-off part that I've never made before. I've never seen anybody make before. So what else are you supposed to do but just wing it? And I think we nailed it the first time. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. We'll be back tomorrow for more fine tuning and, you know, probably making a cap for that. Not sure if we're going to extend it all the way to like the end of the dashboard where it rolls back in under the radio. Do we extend it all the way, or do we just make a cap and let it end where it's at? I think either way is fine. I'll talk to Colleen, see what she says, and yeah, we'll see you guys back here tomorrow. So I think that was a good night, and yeah, back out here on the Jeep today, and we are working on that lower dash extension that we made yesterday. So what I'm working on right now is I kind of bent this piece up in more than one way. I tried to put the bead in it and it just wasn't working. I ended up having to hammer it out. You know, I think it's just gonna have to end right there, that bead. But anyways, we made this piece here, so this will be able to be welded on now. This little mark is like the end of our dashboard. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna end up cutting it a little past this mark, and then we're gonna roll everything over and we'll weld it up. So it'll have just a nice little roll right there where it ends. So it's not coming to a point. It'll end in a little roll, which I'm okay with. So what I just did was I marked like the length of our top so that I can cut off that extra metal, and then we'll go back around and I'll mark the bottom, and we'll go ahead and we'll cut that extra off as well. It's too small of a piece to cut in the shear, so we're gonna just whiz wheel it, cut off wheel. So out here, now you guys can see what this is going to look like. So it's gonna look about like so. Have to hold it up there straight. So I think that that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. That's workable. I think we're gonna bring this whole thing over to the table, and we're gonna start welding some of it together. Welding, tacking. You know, some of those bends that we made last night that we had to put the pie cuts in them to bend, you know, they're loose and bending all over the place, so we're gonna get those tacked together so that they stop moving, and make sure everything fits the dashboard correctly. And then I think once we get it all tacked together to where it's not gonna move any, what we need to do is we need to, I'll show you. So on this piece, you know, we got the steering wheel that comes through here. If you see these two black marks, the magic marker, that is where the glove box sits. So I could either trim off some of the glove box so that it sits flush up against everything, but then our line is covered by that glove box. So I don't know if that would look right or not. But if we come in to this edge and we cut, and then we come over to this edge and we cut, and we straighten this metal back out here so that it's straight up and down, and then I put it back in the box brake and I brake it at this line. Then when we put it in there and put the glove box on, the glove box will actually fit inside that mark, and then our nice body line that we have here would come in and it would drop down and go underneath the glove box, and then it would come back up and continue on with this. So I think that that's the way that we're gonna go. It's not the easiest route to go, but I really don't want to cut up that glove box. There is a tab that is on the bottom of the glove box that I think we are gonna cut off. So there's this little tab here that's on the bottom, and what that tab is that when this opens, it bottoms out on the bottom of the dashboard, and it doesn't allow this to go any farther. So that's like the stop for your glove box door. And this glove box is never gonna open. This is just a cover. So we don't need that. But, you know, for some odd reason, you know, 50 years down the road, somebody wants to make this glove box open, then the glove box is still there. The hinges are still there. Everything's still there to make this glove box open. So that's why I don't want to cut this up, because it's a good glove box, and these things aren't cheap. Like he bought one online, and I forget what he paid for it. It was like $50 or $60 or something that he paid for a glove box store, and it had a cutout in it that somebody had a radio in it. So if that was $50 or $60 and it was cut up, imagine what, you know, this glove box store is probably worth, you know, $100. So I hate to destroy this, you know, for something that we made. So I would rather modify what we made and keep the glove box. But yeah, so that's, you know, those lines, that's right where the glove box sits. So I think we're gonna drop that body line down some. And then, you know, another thing that we got going on, so we cut out this for the steering column. And the steering column only comes up to like, right now it's actually below it, but I know what we got going on, it pulls that steering column up, and this is open just way too far. So I'm not quite sure yet what we're gonna do. There is this plate that there's this plate, and this plate is gonna stick out from this dashboard. So we need to cut like a slice in this dashboard piece for this piece. That small section right there needs to stick out of this, so that we can bolt the steering column back up where it needs to be bolted up. I thought about moving this all together to like behind the dashboard, which would be a lot nicer and a lot cleaner of a look. But then again, you know, I'm trying not to reinvent the wheel here. This was something that was extra. It was not really part of the original job. Well, not that anything that's been done to this thing was part of the original job. But I'm trying not to spend a lot of time making this, because we need to get the truck done and stop messing around with, you know, making shit cool. So this is just kind of like, let's get it done and make it all work. So with this sticking out, I think, you know, we're still gonna have to have some kind of cover here that is going to, you know, come out and cover this portion of it, and cover part of the steering column. So we're gonna have to make something here, whether it's round or rectangular. You know, I think round would probably be the maybe easier to make. I maybe, but there's nothing round on the vehicle, so, you know, I think maybe we're gonna go with the square rectangle type cover. That's gonna, you know, protrude out from here, and then that'll cover this, because we cut it up too high. Isn't a big deal. You know, I still have all the pieces that we cut out of this, so I could easily just weld them back in, or we could easily make a new one and weld it in there, but I don't think we need to, because we have that cover. But we need to address this situation as well. Let's get the welder over here, stop talking, and start welding some of this together. Another thing that we got to work on is that whole brake assembly. You know, it mounts right here above this steering column. So it was hitting on the back of this yesterday. So if you remember in the video, like, I was trying to get in there with the grinder and kind of grind it down a little bit to make it fit. And we ended up just pulling it out. It'd be easier to do it out. So we gotta, you know, we got to cut and grind that up and make that fit a little better. let's go we'll do a little test fit and see. I think that looks pretty good. Let's just go check it, make sure nothing moved. Alright, well, we got it all welded up, and it definitely moved while we were welding it, which, you know, I was fully aware that that could happen. What we're going to have to do is, once we get this all grinded up and cleaned up, we're going to have to cut here and cut here and open it back up some and then weld it back up. Not a big deal, you know, you guys seen it before. There was, you know, 10 cuts on each side of it. Each one of those cuts is a spot where it can move. So now that we got it all welded up, we can go through, we can make one cut and get it set where we need it, and then you know, weld it back up. So not a big deal. At least we don't have, you know, 100 spots that are moving around now. Everything is solid. Alright, so we got this all grinded up, and I'm going to make the cut here to swing this back out. I'm going to use this guy to make the cut instead of the whiz wheel, because we're going to be opening it up, and you know, the farther that we open it up, the harder it is to weld up. So, you know, cutting with the whiz wheel blade is already going to put a thick cut in it, and then opening it up would make it even thicker. So let's keep it thin, and hopefully we can just weld it back up. See how much of it already opened. So, you know, whiz wheel would have made that even thicker. Alright, so we're back to being nice and straight. Now we just gotta try and not let that move again when we weld it back up. actually I'm okay with the cut being in there, being that it's a nice, just clean cut. You know, because this is gonna get, it'll get nuts and bolts all the way along that bolt this thing up. So technically the nuts and bolts will hold it, you know, where we need it. So, you know, we don't even have to weld that up if we don't want to, because it looks like it's, to me it looks factory with that, you know, with the way that cut was made, just being a nice clean straight cut. You know, it looks like it could have been there. Looks like you know, something that they would have done back in the day to make it fit. So but you know, who knows, we'll see. But for now, I'm happy that it's in there. I'm happy that we have our tip that ends at the end there. I think this thing's looking awesome. Okay, so we're back out here after lunch working on this. We left off earlier with making the cuts, and I said that I was okay with those staying there. I did end up making another set of cuts. Even though we had this straightened out where I wanted it, this little section right here was off as well. So I ended up making another set of cuts at this bend, and we ended up bending this back. I think our cuts that we made here were unnecessary. I think the cut needed to be here, and we needed to bend this out, and that would have straightened this out. But either way, we got it all straightened out now. When I welded this back together this time, I made attack and attack and attack and attack, and I went and checked it. And attack and attack and attack and attack, and I went and checked it. And I did that every time until it was welded up. And then after it was all welded up, I checked it again, and we're all good. So I grinded everything down, and we are ready to move on to making this glove box door fit. So this part, I'm not looking forward to this part, because we need to straighten this bend back out. We need to make a cut, and then we need to straighten this bend back out and move the bend down, which we'll get it done. But usually I end up beating the metal up here trying to straighten this out. Hopefully the beat up part will stay off of this, and only be up here, and then when we make our new bend, you know, the beat up part will be here, but I highly doubt it. I think we're gonna end up getting into this as well. It just happens. So let's just do what we got to do, and let's get this part done. And then once we get this part done, we got to trim some of that off that brake pedal assembly, and we got to put that back in. And we're probably gonna end up having to cut a square out of here for that brake assembly, for this to clear that brake assembly, because that brake assembly mounts to the bottom of the dashboard. So we gotta get that mounted, and then cut a section out of this so that this will slip on and off without having to mess with that brake assembly. And once the glove box is on, so we've had the brake assembly in, and we've had the glove box on, and we're good there. So whatever we have to cut out of here for the brake assembly should be covered by the glove box. hopefully. I'm gonna use this to cut it. Try and keep this cut thin again. A hammer with a little more oomph behind it. Okay, like I said, I knew we were going to beat that up. But let's go. I gotta go remove some teeth over on the brake, so that we're only braking this area, and then we'll be back to put this bend back in. Ow! Ow! All right. Alright, let's see. So we kind of got the brake in there, but it was starting to bend up the panel. Alright, hopefully I didn't destroy this panel too much. Alright, we're super close. I've had it all in. It's a little tight on this corner, and I can see that it curls up here. So let's see if we can try and get that curl out of there. Alright, let's go pop this back in. You guys can take a look. All right. Well, it is in. You know, we gotta round out these corners just a little bit, and then we gotta weld. We'll have to cut a piece of metal to fit in there and weld that up. And we'll have to be careful welding that up, because now that we cut that open right there, like, it's all loose and wants to bend there. So yeah, but now the glove box door is in. Looking good, looking good. So we did end up beating that piece up a little bit, which I told you guys that we were gonna end up doing that, but you know, it's only metal. We hammered it back as straight as, you know, I'm willing to get it. And then, you know, it'll just get a skim coat of filler, and we'll fix it in that. So you know, it's a shame that it was a nice straight piece of metal, and you know, now it's got a bunch of little dimples in it from us hammering it, but it is what it is. It's just part of making stuff, I guess. But so next is this brake thing. So we're gonna trim. We can't take much off of this because we're getting into the bolts, of course. And this is our hole here that bolts it to the bottom of the dashboard. So I'm thinking, you know, just, you know, I'm thinking like an 1/8 inch will be enough. I mean, just us, a little bit of grinding that we did on it last night was helping. So I think we'll grind that off, and hopefully that'll fit. And then once I grind this off, I think I'm gonna pull that dash piece back out, and we're gonna round up those corners a little bit and weld those up so that stops flexing around. And this is what I was talking about, like, we're gonna have to cut a notch out of that dashboard to fit where this goes. I was gonna do that right now. I was just gonna trim this up, install this, and then start working on that other piece. But you know, it's kind of flimsy and wanting to bend since we put those cuts in. So before we cut the square out of that for this piece, let's get that welded up. So I'll be back once I get this grinded up and we get the dashboard back out. I don't think it's super exciting, so I'm not gonna bore you guys with it. I'll be back here shortly. All right, so we got the brake guide trimmed up. Hopefully that'll be enough. And then, so what I did was I just took this little piece of metal and I bent it up. And then we're gonna slip it underneath like so. And we're gonna tack it in, we'll cut it off, move the other part over to the other side, and we'll do that side too. So let's turn the welder back on. We got our strength back. I'm gonna go test fit this, make sure that the glove box still fits, and we'll be back. So we got the brake thing in. It was only a little bit of a struggle, and I marked where we got to cut this out. So alright, we may have to trim some more out of that, but let's just go test fit. I'd rather sneak up on it. We're close. We're actually hitting on the back end here, so I'm gonna trim some of that off. It fits, but we are touching, so Alright, so everything fits now. We're good. I'm happy. The brake pedal is in. Now we got to work on getting the steering. And this has to come out from inside there. So now what we got to do, alright, so we got some marks in there and we need to cut that out. So this is going to be just kind of a wing it and ding it moment. So basically we're just going to cut into this and cut a chunk out of it. Now that thing is curved, so which way that curve has to go, I don't know. We're just going to cut and find out. Alright, ugly little slot, but let's see if that pops through now. Okay, so it fits through, but it needs to be down. Okay, so it looks ugly, but it fits. And now we can make a cover that goes over this, that covers all this up. And also hides the steering column mount as well. You know, we were already gonna make a cover for that that steering column mount. That's how we got down this whole path in the first place. You know, we were working on just making a cover for that steering column mount when Colleen came and took a look at it and said, hey, why don't you just extend the bottom of the dashboard down so that you have a place for your gauges and your key and your switches and all that stuff. So that's how we got here. Now we're back to where we started day before yesterday. Alright, we'll be back. Okay, so it's all in there. As you can see, so I'm gonna make a new one of these tomorrow. And you know what we're gonna end up doing. You know, this here, I don't know if you guys can see it in the video, but it's bent. You know, it being all white, it's hard to see. But like this bend that's here, you know, we're gonna make it match this bend here, you know, the bend there. So that way, you know, everything matches. And we are gonna make it come all the way down to the bottom, you know, bottom of the dashboard here. And then I'm hoping that we can take this bead roll line and we can mark it in here and come up and around the steering column over to the other side and back over to meet up with this body line. So we're gonna run the body line through this piece, I hope. This side over here, you know, what I'm probably gonna end up doing is like taking a piece of pipe and cutting it in half, and then we'll put the piece of pipe over this, and we'll weld it to the dashboard, and then it'll get welded to this piece. Or, you know, maybe we'll take a piece of sheet metal and we'll bend it into a semicircle to, you know, make a little cap for that. There's nothing else really that I could do other than to make this piece, you know, this white cardboard that we have. You know, I mean, maybe we'll mess around with that idea. I mean, it's just cardboard, we can bend it up, you know, but run it out this far, you know, I don't know if I want to run it out that far. I think I would rather just have this little cover that covers that up. So you know, I don't want to cut too much more of that piece off, or we're gonna make that piece weak and it's gonna be useless. So, but anyways, you know, I'm thinking that that's looking pretty good. You know, and like I said before, like this hoop, we'll paint that hoop blue to match the dashboard. It'll come out underneath that cover and just look like it's part of it. So I think it's looking good. We're headed in the right direction. You know, it sucks we had to cut that ugly hole in it, but I knew that was coming, and I knew we were going to be making a cover for it, so wasn't too worried about it. But so I think tomorrow we should be all wrapped up. Hopefully tomorrow we should be wrapped up with that piece. Now, as far as mounting it, that's probably that'll probably be the next day as far as getting it mounted. And what I'm thinking is that we're gonna go through probably in 4 spots along the bottom of the dashboard, and we're gonna drill a hole in the bottom of the dashboard. Then we'll install that piece how it is, and then we're gonna go in and we're gonna mark where those holes are. Hopefully I can get in there and mark where those holes are, and then we can drill a hole in the piece we just made at each one of those spots, and it'll just get it'll probably just get like a Phillips screw with a nut. So yeah, so that'll be that. I think, you know, I think mounting it's a simple idea, but I think drilling the holes are going to be a pain in the butt. So that'll be the next day. But tomorrow we'll come out. We'll first thing we're going to do is now that whole steering thing is all bolted together the way it is, I gotta see if I can take that part of the dash out. That part needs to be able to come in and out the way that it's sitting. We made it come in and out with all that without that there. So it may need some more trimming now to like get past the bolts or get past that hoop. But we'll see. I mean, we got a pretty nasty opening there already. Hopefully it'll fit through. If not, we'll make it a little bit bigger. As you can see, it's gonna get covered anyways. And that cover will end up getting welded to the part of the dash. So all the strength that we took out of there will be back. And probably what we're gonna end up doing, if you remember back several videos ago, we did those shock tower covers that were on the inside of the fenders. And we kind of did the same thing with those. We trimmed out the fender until we had enough clearance to clear that shock tower, and then we made a cover for it. We welded the cover in, and then we went to the backside and we cut out all that excess metal that we didn't need anymore, and cleaned all that up. And we'll probably end up doing the same thing with this. So once we get that cover made and welded on, then we'll go from the backside and we'll just cut all that metal out that is no longer needed and clean it up. So everything, that whole ugly hole thing that we just made, and me being worried about whether it comes off and on with those bolts there, we won't have to worry about that because we're gonna cut it all out anyway. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm not gonna talk your ear off. I will see you guys in the next one. Remember to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, please. Thank you. I'm out.
Oop.